Okay, so the last question I wanted to ask was some of the challenges of making art that isn't necessarily visual. Um, I think it's a really, really open-ended question, but can you answer that? Or
The difficulties of making art that isn't visual.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. What are some of the what are the specific challenges that go along with that, as opposed to making work that's visual that's automatically recognized as a work of fine art?
um, yeah, that's a really good question. I've had this problem the whole time with this project, especially with people. People want to have a lot of documentation of the project, or I should make a DVD, or I should make a book, or do audio guides, or I don't know, something, some sort of physical object about the project. And for me, this artwork is this experience, is coming to these locations and looking through the Polito-Oki book, and writing down a speech and getting on the stage and delivering a speech and seeing someone else deliver a speech. That's the artwork. And that's something that can't really be replicated unless you physically do it. I think as far as like art, it is an artwork, but it's not an artwork in the sense of what the market sort of drives art to be. And it does make it problematic because I'm moving and shifting between a lot of different sort of mediums and different worlds. Like it's not, I was working with people who were in the art field. I was working with people in the film field, doing shows in music venues, in bars, in lots of different kinds of spaces, because I was also interested in getting a different kind of audience. I wasn't really interested in only running and going to people who would only come to an art event. I wanted to have an audience that came from a broader background.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I really, within developing the show and building the show and planning the tour, that I tried to do. Um, it is a visual artwork, but it's a visual artwork that only exists if you're there in that moment. And I think that what's important about that work, about this work, is being able to be in that moment, or being able to have. It's like when you go to see a band, and this band is great and that performance happens, and it's never going to be the same if you watch it on video, and it's never going to be as amazing on a recording as if you were. It's not going to be like as if you were there. And I think that that's what I tried to do with this project, is to really make the experience the work. So it's very individualized. Like everybody has their own opinion about how it worked for them or what it was for them, but you still have this one thing that's yours, and this ethereal sort of quality of it is what makes it so great. I don't know. It could be done other ways. It could be done on television. It could be done in, I do have videos on YouTube and stuff like that, but I think there's a very different experience from the actual project being there. But I think, especially nowadays, there's art has become so broad and has crossed into so many fields that you can't really determine whether or not something is a visual piece of art based off if there's a finished sort of product hanging on the wall.
Cool. So what are you working on right now?
What am I working on right now?
Yeah. What's coming from Diana
What's
Arce?
coming from Diana Arce? I'm working on the Dead Collective, where I am I'm running experiments to talk to dead artists in order to ask them where the next move in art should happen in this time of crisis. If we look through art history, there's always been sort of a big shift or a new movement coming out of certain political or economic situations. And I think that at least in the last like 20 years, there hasn't really been a big shift. There's been, theoreticists putting groups of artists together and calling it a sort of new theoretical movement, but there hasn't really been a shift where like a group of artists has made a big impact, or is making enough of an impact that maybe it's going to become part of the discourse a bit later. And so I'm trying to talk to various artists who have passed, to discuss what the next move should be, and what we should be doing, or what kind of work we should be making, or what we should be really looking at in society, and how we can affect society through artwork. And hopefully with that information also make an artwork as a collective with the dead artists. And there's also talk of doing a small tour of Polito for the Germany elections that are coming up in September, end of September. So I'm possibly going to be maybe touring as well in Germany. There's also talks with a lot of different other ways of maybe doing the work, and maybe sort of moving the work into sort of another medium that just wouldn't be a performance piece, but maybe moving into TV or radio or something like that. So it's complicated. That's not everything I'm working on, but that's what I'm working on right now. So I have a lot of work to do. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.